I'm joined now by Lettuce Bronsky, political commentator and journalist, Peter Barnes, political commentator, Dennis McShane, former Labour Minister for Europe, and writer Matthew Stadlen, political commentator. Right, well, I'm going to start with you, Dennis McShane.
You want me to answer the question?
Well, yeah, what do you think? Well, I did ask the question.
I think...
Well, why are you here if you're not going to answer the questions? Why is he here?
Right. I would go a bit easy on assuming it is the deal breaker for the next election. It's very clear that Sir Keir Starmer is going to try and quieten it down. And it's just to see Michael Gove come out of the traps, because who invented ULEZ? It was Boris Johnson. Who invented all these low-traffic schemes that drive people bonkers? Boris Johnson, when he was Mayor of London. So it's a problem. We probably all hate driving at under 70 miles an hour. We hate regulation. But we've got the highest respiratory illnesses in Britain, including 4,000 deaths a year, other than Turkey. Is that really Michael Gove's ambition to turn Britain into the sick, dirty man of Europe with kids dying from this? Well,
no, but so far, let's be honest, I think there's a slight overreach there, because so far, let's be honest, Boris Johnson did come up with ULEZ, but stretching of it everywhere, and for £12.50, if he really wanted to do something, he could do something about London Underground. Let's go to Matthew Stadlen. Matthew.
Nana, good to see. Two different things here. One is the poisoned air stuff, which is affecting us in London. I live in London. I have a young baby. I do enjoy my car, but at the same time, I recognise that cars are doing great damage, including to the lungs of my little one. Then there's the bigger question of in the environment and climate change. We know climate change is happening. We know that we are having an impact on that climate change. We know that that is causing extreme weather conditions. It doesn't mean that every hot day is because of climate change. It doesn't mean because every wet day is because of climate change. But generally, if we listen to the scientists, it is real. And it would be absolutely madness and self-harming if our leading political parties ditch commitments to net zero for narrow party political gain. If you want more refugee crises, if you want serious droughts, if you want serious fires, if you want food shortages, ultimately if you want war, when habitable parts of the world become scarcer, then abandon this stuff now. But if you're a serious political entity, if you're the Labour Party, if you're the Tory Party, and there has been cross-party consensus now for a while, do not panic. Stick to your guns, because this is about our futures and the futures of our children.
All right, let's go to Lettuce.
Yeah, I think I would fundamentally agree with that. It would be seriously poor leadership decision to start scrapping net zero policies now, particularly on the back of what's one single by-election result, which realistically was barely a win for the Conservatives at the end of the day. It was based off of ULEZ, which we agree probably that it was a poorly planned, poorly rolled out policy that did not bring along the people with it. We've got to be realistic about the challenges that we face right now achieving net zero. And I think there is a middle ground in this, away from the extremes of just stop oil to the other end of, the Conservative MP like Jacob Rees-Mogg or Sir Ian Duncan-Smith. There's a middle ground where we can keep these net zero policies and find a sustainable way to implement them and a pragmatic way.
Peter Barnes.
I don't necessarily disagree with what we've just heard then about actually having this conversation in a pragmatic way. The fundamental problem is most people, when they come on these kind of shows and start talking about it, start saying, it's about the future for our children. It's about, there's going to be war and all the rest of it. It's the kind of catastrophising of the kind of this debate that I actually find quite irritating. It just gets a little bit kind of like on the nose every now and then. I actually think that environmentalists have done more harm to the environmental cause than anybody else. If you look like or Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion, they're not. I don't really think they're serious people. If you want to have a serious debate, I suggest they get more serious about the issues that they want to talk about. That's the reality. That's where we are now.
Yeah, but Peter, do you think that electorally, if the Tories were prepared to abandon, or one of the parties were prepared to at least abandon it, that it could potentially be a vote winner?
I don't think it's necessarily abandoning it. I think it's reassessing, considering the other factors that are happening. We are in the middle of a cost of living crisis, and then Sadiq Khan wants to expand ULEZ, and is that going to have a knock-on effect? You can't just deny that, and then you start making these big arguments about clean air and all the rest of it. It doesn't add up for the people on the street. It's about convincing people. The problem I have with most of this net zero stuff is you're kind of lectured into it and you're bullied into it. You're not convinced. You're not led rightly. And I think that's where most of this stuff keeps going wrong.
Well, I remember all those arguments, forgive me, about banning smoking for year after year after year. Stop bullying people, persuade them, convince them. And then suddenly, I don't know, it was a Tory government or a Labour government, I don't care, it's just sod it. No more smoking in pubs, no more smoking in tube trains, no more smoking in the office. And people woke up and said, oh, I didn't know we could do that. And the quality of life improved very considerably. I do think, don't forget, it was Boris Johnson who said we've got to get rid of all of these cars by 2030. In Spain, where they're having an election today, the date for abolishing fossil fuel-driven cars is 2050. So why Spanish socialists are more sensible and sensitive than a Tory Prime Minister, I don't know. But it's incredible, having put that in, having invented ULEZ, he then comes out of the trap and says, oh, no, I didn't mean any of it. It's all terrible. It's all horrible, Sadiq.
Who said that?
Sadiq.
Who said that?
Boris is out there.
He didn't say that. No. But Sadiq is talking about expanding it to the whole of London, and then it's going to end up. The Labour Party said they'll expand it in other parts of the country. Listen, I could talk to you guys for ages. Matthew Stanley, I'm going to give you 20 seconds more. Matthew Stanley, briefly come back on that.
I would just say, follow the science, but also policy has to be made sensibly and properly. And people on low incomes, people who are really struggling, should not be hit disproportionately. Mm-hmm. Policy has to be sound, but we cannot wish away the climate reality.
Brilliant. Matthew Stanley, thank you very much, political commentator.